Are you frustrated because your employees don't care? You look at them and you think, why aren't they prioritizing what's important to the company? Maybe they just seem to be prioritizing what's important to their own little team or maybe to themselves. Maybe they're completely distracted with social media or maybe even by interviewing for other jobs. And they're putting the overall mission and vision of the company in jeopardy. And this is no way to run a company. And it's so frustrating because it is hard. It is impossible to hire for care. That's right. If you want to hire for care, what are you going to do? Give them some kind of assessment? It just doesn't exist because maybe they cared about their other job, or maybe they cared about the job they have now when they started the company. But what about now? You're seeing the results. Maybe they're slow in responding to that urgent email from a customer. Maybe it cost you a few sales, or maybe it's on a big contract that they let slide. It misses a deadline, which impacts the bottom line next year. And you're already starting next year behind the 8 ball because the contract wasn't addressed early enough. Maybe you're getting squeezed on deadlines and having to pay extra. That's right. Pay extra to catch up, to deliver on your goals to the customer. Look, impossible. Again, impossible to hire for. And if you think it's impossible to hire for, it's even more difficult to fire for not caring. I've been in that situation myself where I had an employee who was highly recommended to me, and I hired him based on his past performance and credentials. But when he got in this role, while he performed great at the beginning, over time, his performance started to decrease and decline. And meanwhile, I was picking up the slack and my other team members, and it demoralized the rest of my team. They became less motivated because they were always having to do extra work and not being compensated for it. And when we needed to part ways, it was hard to build a case and work with human resources. And it was a huge emotional burden because no one likes to fire people. Eventually, we were able to part ways. And interestingly, now he's actually working at a company where he does care and he's performing well, but sometimes it just doesn't work out. So learning how to instill this sense of care in your employees, since you can't hire for it and you don't want to have to fire for it, instilling care may be one of the most important leadership skills that you can add to your arsenal. So I'm going to give you 3 quick strategies to do that today. Number 1 is to have a leadership vision. That's right. Have a message that you're communicating to your team. We do a lot of leadership training, and one of our most popular workshops is around helping leaders create their own leadership vision. And when the leaders come, even very senior ones, yes, they may be familiar with what the vision is for the company, okay, but they don't have one for themselves, for their team, for their function. And so we take them through this process. And so they walk out of this with one. But you'd be surprised with the amount of leaders that come without one. And so you can do that today. Take a shot at it. And then do step 2, which is go the extra step to communicate it. A lot of times you can just type it in an email. You can get some one-on-one feedback. And that can be a great way to get people to hear it, to get some feedback on your vision. And probably equally important, okay, is to describe to your team their part in it, right? What is their job and how does it fit to the bigger picture? This can be a great motivational way to get your employees to care. Number 3 is to create a business podcast that effectively and regularly communicates your message broadly. Because like Simon Sinek talks about, customers and employees buy your why first. And explaining why over and over via a podcast, as well as your own leadership stories and messages, can be so helpful in communicating this. Yet, surprisingly, so few companies are fully taking advantage of this right now because it's a little bit early in the game. But one of the keys that I encourage leaders to do, and we're providing this today, is to think through how a business podcast can be effective for you and your organization, and also help stake your claim as a leader inside your industry and with your customers. Now, if you'd like to hear more about this is something that we actually provide, and we've got great results to share from our own podcast as well as the podcast of our clients. In order to do that, you can email me at ben@benfanning.com, right? That's the email address. I'll get it and just put in the subject line, business podcast. And when you do that, I'll respond to you and we'll set up 15 minutes. I'll walk you through a 5-step business podcast framework. And then you can walk away and apply this inside your organization or to your own podcast. Or we can also share with you how we work with organizations to set these podcasts up A to Z to effectively communicate your leadership message, get buy-in, and ultimately increase the care of your employees inside your organization, which increases their loyalty for them and your customers.